tulikuwa na mito 23. Leo tuko na mto mmoja, ile ingine 22 imekauka, na hata hiyo moja ni hii Makindu inapata maji wakati iko El Nino peke yake. Na hiyo kazi yote imetendeka kwa sababu ya kubadilika kwa mazingira na kazi ya binadamu. Sisi tumekata miti, tumeenda tukaishi wetland, tukaenda tukaweka kilimo mahali ambapo haifai, na ndio sababu hiyo tuko na matatizo makubwa, hata yanatuletea matatizo ya kuwa na chakula.
Toromo Dennis, EBN TV, Prime Edition.
Now, many thanks, Toromo Dennis, for that specific report. Now, the Kenyan government announced a surprise public holiday on November 13th for a nationwide tree planting day, which is part of its ambitious plan to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki made the announcement via a gazette notice posted on the social networks X, formerly known as Twitter, following a cabinet meeting held last week and chaired by President William Ruto. Now, Consolata Chibalonza tells us more about that specific holiday.
President William Ruto spearheaded the national tree planting exercise in Makindu, Makueni County, in line with the public holiday declared by Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki on November the 7th, 2023. Cabinet secretaries also took the lead in a similar exercise across different counties as part of the government's ambitious goal to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. The head of state was accompanied by the First Lady as well, who lauded the initiative.
Wakati nilisoma ile karatasi, nilisoma jina ambaye inaitwa kiu. Hapa inaitwa kiu. Kwa hivyo nashukuru leo, maana rais pamoja na viongozi wote wamekuja ili watu wa Makueni wasikuwe na kiu tena. Amen. Kwa hivyo kuna mtu mmoja alisema kwamba panda mti ambao kivuli chake haitakufaidi wewe. Kusema kwamba tupande miti ili tuweze kusaidia vizazi ambavyo vinakuja katika siku za usoni.
Of tree seedlings in Turkana County was led by the Secretary of Immigration and Citizen Services, Ambassador Julius Bitok, where more than 2,000 saplings have been planted in the Ekales center field on the outskirts of Lodwar town. The area being dry, the governor of Turkana has said that special county workers have been appointed to ensure that these seedlings grow to maturity.
For Turkana, it is very important because when we plant more trees, we shall be able to get more water, we get more grassland for animals, we get more better environment, so that those trees will help us actually reduce conflict with our neighbors. It will help us have more water, grazing land for animals, and that by a large extent will even bring peace. So we are here as ambassadors of environment, as ambassadors of peace, and we are heeding the directive of His Excellency.
Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria on Monday took part in the national tree planting exercise. Kuria led the exercise at Kamobo Forest in Emugwen, Nandi County. He was accompanied by the host governor Stephen Sang, Secretary for ICT John Tanui, and Nandi County Commissioner Caroline Zwili. In Siaya, where he was scheduled to lead the exercise, Kuria was represented by Leah Kasera from the Office of Head of Public Service and Chairperson of the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, Charles Owino.
Kenya ilipoteza mifugo ya dola bilioni 1.8 katika mambo ya kiangazi. Tukiathirika na mambo ya kubadilika ya hali ya anga, inaathiri sisi ambao hatuchafui hali ya anga kuliko nchi zingine. Kenya continues to pay a heavy price, and Africa continues to pay a very heavy price for climate change that we have contributed very little.
Consolata Chibalonza.
Now moving forth, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya party leader Raila Odinga has challenged President William Ruto to look for alternative means of generating revenue for development in the country instead of taxing Kenyans. Odinga accused President William Ruto of frustrating poor Kenyans with taxes, saying taxation is not a remedy for solving the development needs of Kenyans. Now, the opposition leader said Kenyans are already overwhelmed by the high cost of living, yet the Kenya Kwanza administration has kept imposing taxes on them every time.
We want to show that it can be done. We know how to organize an economy. We know how to organize and run a growing economy that will be able to offer employment for all the youth of our country. You cannot build an economy through taxation. You cannot build an economy through over-taxation of the poor. That's how not to do it. To stimulate a stagnating economy, to stimulate an economy that is under recession, you need to put money in the people's pockets. You need to introduce programs like Kazi Mtaani, Kazi kwa vijana, so that money is put in the pocket of the youth. That way you'll be able to trigger growth. You will be able to stimulate economy and growth will arise.
Now on matters education, remember the Kenya National Examination Council (NEC) has cautioned candidates sitting for their KCSE examinations to be cautious of fake exam papers being circulated in various social media platforms. NEC Chief Executive Officer CEO, that is Dr. David Njegere, has confirmed that the examination papers being circulated on social media platforms are not genuine and only meant to deceive those sitting for KCSE. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
So today I want us to share back home.
Today marks the beginning of the second week of the administration of the KCSE examination. And I want to commend our secondary school teachers for the great job they did in week one. Week one went on very smoothly. The new rules that we introduced have been adhered to the letter. That is the double collection of the two papers, the morning paper collected at 7, and I'm sure you have seen at this container, it has been collected at 7, administered between 8 and 10, and the scripts returned to the container, and the center managers collect the second session paper at 12:30, administered from 2 p.m. And that has to a large extent helped us to curb the biggest challenge we have had of the early exposure of the second session paper. We have deployed adequate helicopters to that place, even parts of Kitui, Mutito especially, and we have deployed helicopters even this morning to make sure that there is no delay in the administration of the examination. I can assure you with absolute confidence, there is no single genuine paper that can circulate on those social media platforms. What they're having there is fake papers. What they do, as the PS explained last week, like now the first paper will start at 8. So some of those social media fellows, they will collude with somebody somewhere and they will look for an image of that paper which is being done. They will try to share it on Telegram. Fortunately, we are working with the Ministry of ICT and all those cases have been neutered. So there is no effect even on social media.
Now moving forth, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has urged Kenyans to be patient as the Kenya Kwanza government works to restore economic normalcy. Now Wetangula insists that 1 year is not enough time for the government to achieve its promises made during the campaign season, that is 2022 August.
Nchi na changamoto. Yeye amekuwa kwa ofisi mwaka moja peke yake. Mwaka moja tu. Tumuombee, tumupe nafasi ili abadilishe nchi yetu. Tuko na changamoto kubwa, bei ya mafuta iko juu. Mungu ametubariki, mvua imenyesha, sasa chakula itateremka. Hata kule kwetu kwenye tunakula busu manaingo, sasa bei ya unga imeteremka kutoka Gorogoro ilikuwa 250, sasa iko 70. Inaendelea kuteremka. Na nafikiri hiyo mahindi tumelima, tumevuna mahindi ya ajabu. Itafika mpaka huku kwa bei nafuu na maisha itakuwa mzuri. Na Rais Ruto is able and equal to the task.
Tunajua uchumi ni kali. Sio Kenya peke yake. Nimekuwa Ghana the other day. Tulikuwa na wabunge kutoka the whole of Central and East Africa. Challenges zile tunapitia nayo ni the same Kenya mzima na dunia mzima. Kwa hivyo with the time tunajua rais wetu halali usiku na mchana is a very active president ambaye amezunguka dunia mzima. Na hii hali amejikuta ndani yake, si yeye ndiye amecreate. Kwa hivyo mimi tunaomba patience, tuweze kumsaidia, lakini mambo mingi tutaenda kurekebisha.
We have a problem of cost of living, we have a problem of so many other things, but this is our country. We must pray for it and we must work hard to turn around our economy so that our citizens will enjoy what is rightly theirs. Kuna vitu bili Kenya haiwezi kutatua peke yake. Maneno ya mafuta kwa Kenya, sisi kama wa Kenya, we are not an oil producing country. Bei yake inashikanishwa na mambo ya ulimwengu yote, because we don't determine the prices and movement of prices of fuel in Kenya. It is determined by international factors. Secondly, maneno ya pesa hii inaitwa dola. Dola ni ya wasungu ya Amerikani. We have no control over the rise of dollar other than to deal with it through growing of our food so that we become self-reliant as a nation.
Ile maneno ambazo tunaweza control sisi tu.
Now moving forth, over 20,000 households in Mandera County have been compelled to evacuate their residence due to the continuous heavy rainfall persisting for more than 36 hours. The downpour has triggered massive flooding, submerging houses, uprooting trees and paralyzing normal life. Mohammed Yusuf, the MC of Halalio, Mandera East, has was urgently called on humanitarian agencies, including the Kenya Red Cross, to expedite their rescue efforts before the situation deteriorates further.
100% of this town is submerged. 100% of the population of this town are out of their residential homes, and that is also to say that quite large areas within the entire county are also submerged, including Lafay sub-county, in a town called Damasa, in Mandera North, in Mandera East, which is the second most impacted sub-county, especially around the area of Halalio Dariga area. As far as we are concerned, we are trying our best as a county government to respond to this disaster.
In supporting communities that were affected by floods in Mandera. So a total of around 4 sub-counties were heavily affected with this flood. Specifically, the worst hit sub-county is Mandera South, followed by Mandera East. And as Kenya Red Cross, we have been doing a number of interventions that was geared to a displaced population. Specifically, the population that were displaced around 34,000 within the entire Mandera County.
And sooner or later, as all of us are aware now, that elaborate response mechanisms have been activated, and we expect that effective response is going to reach out to everybody who is affected throughout the sub-county.
Well, now moving forth, more than 300,000 tree seedlings will be planted, rather were planted in the northeastern region, with a target of 100,000 tree seedlings in each of the 3 counties of Garissa, Mandera and Wajir. Each of the 441 chiefs in the region coordinated the planting and growing of at least 680 trees in their locations. Now launched the national tree growing exercise in Garissa County. Governor Nadif Jama, National Police Service Principal Administrative Secretary Banis Sialal, Lemedeket Secretary National Administration Beverly Opora, and other senior national and county governments were in attendance. Hiyo umeandika nini? Now residents of Soweto in Nyali sub-county are living in fear and worry of their homes being destroyed in the land they have lived in for more than 30 years after the Mombasa court issued a 30-day notice to find an alternative place. Now, in addition, the angry residents have explained that the land of 13 acres has been contested by more than 280 owners, and now they want the government to intervene as they have nowhere else to go.
Na hii shamba ilichukuliwa na mababu zetu. Tumeishi hapa muda mrefu. Tumezaliwa tukiwa watoto, na sasa nasi tumezaa tuko na watoto. Kuna wanyanya, kuna vijukuu. Sasa hii mnataka mtuvunjie, mnataka mtubomolee. Tutaishi wapi, tutaenda wapi na hawa watoto?
Anakuja kitutisha ya kuwa yeye ni mwenye shamba, yuakuja kuvunja. Sasa sisi hivi kama watu wa Soweto tutaenda wapi na tuko na watoto?
Jua kwamba niko kwangu na sitatoka. I'm telling you true. Sijasoma, sijaenda mahali popote, lakini ninavijua mimi, my friend, I don't move.
Sisi hapa hatuwezi kuondoka. Mheshimiwa Rais, tafadhali. Wewe umesema kwamba unatetea haki ya wanyonge. Haki ya wanyonge ni sisi ambao tunadhulumiwa. Leo hii tukivunjiwa na mivua hii na jamii hii na familia hii ambayo unaiona hapa. Mheshimiwa Rais, tutaenda wapi sisi, Mheshimiwa Rais?
Kwa hivyo tunakataa hiyo koti oda, leo tunaifuta. Sisi ni wakazi wa Soweto na tutabaki Soweto, hatutaondoka Soweto. Jua litoka huku liende huku, hatutaweza kuondoka hapa Soweto.
Naomba serikali, kama kweli bwana ni halali yake, basi alipwe, awache wananchi wakae mahali hapa, sababu shamba limejaa, hakuna mahali hata unaweza kupata sehemu.
Kama huyu bwana alilipewa hili shamba na akona hatimiliki, aweze kuchunguzwa. Kama ana hatimiliki, Mheshimiwa Rais akaweze kulipwa. Kama hana hatimiliki, akaweze kutafuta shamba lake mahali kwingine ambapo liko.
Welcome back. A quick one on today's dailies, starting with the Daily Nation. Now, forgery claim in 17 billion fuel saga. Now, Ports Chief disowned documents presented by businesswoman Anne Njoroge as fake and intended to sell as consignment of diesel, whose ownership has been in dispute. Now, the cargo was offloaded in contravention of a court order, even as the traders' whereabouts remain unknown, and her lawyers sue police bosses over what they term as arrest. That is 93,460 metric tons of diesel on vessel MT Haigu, which was designated for Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan and DRC right there. Now, it is a very interesting story that has been making rounds over the past 2 days. Now, taking a quick one, just right there, we have genuine documents, and those being circulated are fake and are being investigated by government agencies, says KPA, that is the Kenya Ports Authority. Managing Director William Ruto shows a docu-journalist rather of what he claims was a fake bill of lading yesterday, as he refuted claims made by businesswoman Anne Njoroge. Now, KPA says that the papers Anne Njoroge presented were fake. Now, just according to our case, court case that is ongoing, Ms. Anne Njoroge says unless the instant application is had expeditiously, the orders herein granted, the said cargo will be offloaded and discharged to KPA or any such party, and payment made by Galana Energies Limited or any such third party who is not the consignee. Now, my claim herein shall be rendered nugatory, occasioning great financial loss. Now, remember that according to Anne Jerry, that the businesswoman, according to her lawyers, Cliff Mbeta, she is nowhere to be seen, and she went missing. Immediately, she went to record a statement at the DCI headquarters. This is quite interesting, and also they say that they are not aware of where Anne Njoroge is. Now, it is very interesting. Remember that she claims to be the rightful owner of the 17 billion worth of diesel, but the state KPA says it is not hers. Now, Galana Energy says consignment was to meet country's requirement. That is, according to Galana Energies, they claim ownership of that specific vessel that is worth 17 billion of fuel. Now, it is very interesting. We're waiting to see whether her whereabouts will be known, or rather, who specifically is holding her, and where is Anne Njoroge. That is actually a question that her lawyer, Cliff Mbeta, is still asking. Where exactly is my client? With the rest we can deal with, but where is my client? Who is holding my client? And Mbeta has been insisting that Anne Njoroge was asked to go and record a statement by the Energy CS at DCI headquarters. Thereafter, she was nowhere to be seen. Till now, her whereabouts remain unknown. Now, Green Future, Ruto sets Kenya on path to 15 billion tree target. Now, President William Ruto, according to that picture of the day, gets his hands dirty as he led Kenyans in a national tree planting drive yesterday at Kiu Wetlands in Makueni County. Millions of trees were planted countrywide, even as the state plans to use learners to reach ambitious 15 billion tree by 2032. That is quite interesting. Now, it is a move that everyone needs to embrace, especially matters to do with conserving the environment. What was actually controversial with this specific exercise was the fact that each of the 23 cabinet secretaries were sent to different counties across the country, and the counties, some of those specific counties were far away from each other. You can imagine living Homa Bay, heading to coast, living Nairobi, heading to Vihiga, and also Makueni to Vihiga. Those are quite far countries apart. Well, and many, especially a section of lobby groups, came out to criticize the government on the course, that specific course, noting that it is actually extravagance. Now, top lawyers jostle for upcoming JSC vacancy. Daggers have been drawn and the stage set for what promises to be a bracing campaign to elect the Law Society of Kenya male representative to the Judicial Service Commission, JSC. While the election is about 60 days away, lobbying and conversing is in top gear, with the regional caucuses representing to diverse how best of approach the election. Now, an interesting story from Tana River. A woman swims across flooded Tana River to deliver son in hospital. Mohammed Bilal is 4 days old today. When he grows older and is able to understand, an intriguing tale of his birth awaits him. Now, this is quite interesting. Now, that is what we call motherly instinct. She decided to swim across Tana River to just go and deliver her son in hospital. And interesting enough, it was successful, successful delivery. Now, we are also waiting to see exactly the reaction of the hospital and also the county government in terms of making accessibility to such important amenities. Now, basically, that is how today's Daily Nation looks like. A lot of issues to do with the National Tree Planting Days and exam cancel issues. A lot of fake KCSE test papers being sold online. That is basically the ongoing KCSE exams that have entered the second week right there. Now, the standard, Magoha's 250 million in life, but 150 million in death. Widow of the late minister has told the court her husband was worth 100 million less than he had declared in parliament during his vetting. Basically, that is according to what Magoha's wife says, that is Dr. Barbara Magoha. Now, in March 2019, when the Committee on Appointments presented the vetting report of Professor Magoha to the August House, it was revealed that he had a net worth of 250 million Kenya shillings. On his death, he was reported to be worth 150 million. Now, a notable variance of 100 million when comparing his wealth declaration and succession documents. Now, this is quite interesting of how things turn out to be months after the former notable CS passed on. Now, intrigues still, the 17 billion mystery petrol depends the specific issue as KPA disowns documents presented by Anne Njoroge, the businesswoman. Now, climate on one tree at a time. President William Ruto, as you can see on your screens right there, planting a tree in Makueni, and by the side is Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and First Lady Rachel Ruto. Now, suppliers delivers mosquito nets. Now, Ministry of Health will undertake a mass distribution of the nets after a global fund awarded tender to a different company. KEMSA was embroiled in the tender scam that saw senior officials sacked. This is quite a few months ago when KEMSA officials were sacked due to scam, the mosquito net scam that was actually one of the worst facing KEMSA, and it also made President William Ruto to send away, or rather send home, a few top officials. And on matters education, officials push for mobile labs to ease JSS congestion, that is the junior secondary schools across the country. Now, it's said that congestion is high and there is needed to bring on board mobile labs just to make sure that it's easier to accommodate more students right there. Basically, today's Daily Nation, how it looks like. And there's a lot that actually happened on matters tree planting exercise. We saw different individuals coming out to do that specific exercise. Now, we shall also be taking a look on what will be transpiring today. Now, today's the Star budget deficit has risen by 143.5 billion from 718 billion to 861.3 billion Kenya shillings. Weakening shilling taking toll on Kenya. Now, Treasury is trying to reduce the widening deficit with more borrowing. Now, that is actually forming our today's discussion. In a couple of minutes from now, we shall be having this kind of discussion together with an economic expert, that is Killian Molo, who will be helping us understand specifically some of these issues. Are we likely to face economic crisis as a country, or rather, are we facing an economic crisis? And also taking a look on that specific newspaper right there on your screens, President William Ruto led Kenyans in national tree planting exercise. We can also see Martha Karua, the NARC Kenya party leader, right there planting a tree right here in Nairobi. Interesting, as you can see right there. Now, matters economy is what we shall be talking about, and we've seen the government actually yesterday, a certain lobby group, Linda Ugatuzi specifically, came out to condemn the government on the type of expenditures, or rather spendings, they are putting on Kenyans. And we can see that this is taking a toll on us. They are talking about cutting budgets, but we're also talking about improving the living standards of Kenyans. And also oil prices continue going up. A section of opposition leaders are insisting that international oil prices are going down and our prices are going up. Earlier last week, or rather late last week, we saw the Azimio leader Raila Odinga, while in Nyanza region, saying that he is likely to release a dossier of how government, the dealings of oil in government is being operated. Well, we shall be taking a look on that in a couple of minutes from now. Well, don't go too far. We shall be back with our guests, trying to understand and making sense of these numbers. Remember, the Star has highlighted actually our discussion point today. deficit has risen by 143.5 billion. That means that we have to talk about cutting down on our cost of or standards of living, or rather tightening our belts even much more. Well, waiting to see how the Kenya Kwanza government is going to work on what President William Ruto said during the State of the Nation address earlier last week. Don't go too far. We shall be back with that specific discussion.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Hello, praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions, and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you, and let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN Television.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
The word of the Lord today.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome back to the Morning Live right here at EBN TV. Now remember that the cost of living is now being an issue that a section of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leaders still insist the government has to address it. Specifically, Kalonzo Musyoka, that is Wiper Party leader and also a co-chair in the ongoing National Dialogue Committee alongside the National Minority Leader, Opiyo Wandayi, who insists that the bipartisan talk must first address the issue to do with the cost of living that Kenyans are complaining about. Now, over the past few months, the Kenya shillings has been weakening each and every single day. How is this likely to affect our standards of living and also our day in, day out activities? Well, we do have Killian Amolo right here, who will be helping us understand and make sense of where our country is headed in terms of economic growth, or rather deterioration. And today's The Star has highlighted, just taking a look from January, over the past 11 months, the Kenya shillings versus US dollar specifically, major currencies, 123.78 in January. Right now, we talk of 152.44 shillings per dollar. Now, that is interesting. Every month, it seems to have been growing significantly. And over the past 4 months, it has grown by over 10.44 shillings. Now, help us understand the issue to do with how weakening shilling is taking toll on Kenya.
Thank you so much. I would like to begin by helping us to understand that exchange rate is basically the price of one currency in terms of another.
Yes.
Like in our Kenyan situation, our currency is the shilling. And most of our businesses engage in international trade. That means we buy, import, and even export our products. We deal with our nations, other nations that neighbor us. And we have to trade in other currencies as well. Those payments will not be made in Kenyan shillings, but in other currencies like the dollar, the pound, the euro, and other currencies. So the rate at which the Kenyan shilling trades against the dollar is our exchange rate, which today stands at 152 shillings, 0.44. Yeah, it's unfortunate that over the last couple of months, our shilling has been weakening. And this has been necessitated by so many factors, key among them being the current economic crisis that we are in today. The rate at which one currency trades to another is in most cases informed by the forces of demand and supply. How much what is the demand for the shilling and what is the supply of the shilling as compared to the other currencies. So a weaker shilling basically sends signals about a poor demand for our domestic currency, given that most of the firms that involve international trade, they prefer to deal in other currencies because of lack of confidence in our shilling. So what we need to ask ourselves is that why is it that most of the firms are not confident in trading in the Kenyan currency? Yeah, that is the question that needs to be addressed. And when you look around, you realize that there is very poor confidence about the state of our economy here. Yeah, our economy is in crisis, just like you rightfully mentioned earlier on. Most of the economic indicators are actually either not performing or are in a slump, a sudden reduction, if we may mention that word. And that is what is causing the current problem that we have here in the shilling. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, you've brought in the issue to do with most firms deal with international markets, which now you're saying they don't have confidence in our shillings, which has been weakening over the past few months. Now, how does this specific issue to do with how our Kenyan shilling might affect our economic growth right here in the country?
Yes, it affects in so many perspectives. Last week I was reading an article in the Daily Nation which was reporting that over the last 9 months, 42% of investors in the Nairobi Securities Exchange have fled.
Yes.
Not just 10%, not 30%, 42%.
Almost half.
Almost half. This is very significant. The securities market or a stock exchange is normally regarded to be a barometer of the entire economy.
Yes.
That means the performance of the securities exchange is basically an indicator of the performance of the entire economy.
Yes.
So if firms are fleeing our securities market, that means people who have invested in our stock market are divesting and they are going to other economies which are perceived to be having low levels of risks. That basically means that there is no confidence about the state of our Kenyan economy.
Yes.
They have assessed the entire situation. They have looked at the viability of their investments in the Kenyan market, and they have found out that these investments are not economically viable, and that is why they prefer to go to other economies, which is not Kenya. Yeah, so this is what is contributing to the weak shilling. The economy is not performing. When you look at the levels of expenditure, the levels of consumption, people are not buying goods and services because of high taxes on expenditure. If I am buying, let's say I'm buying a loaf of bread today at 65 shillings, right? And last year it was going at 50 shillings, right? The size of the family has probably increased, right? And my take-home pay has gone down because of higher levels of taxes. That means that I would prefer to take tea without any accompaniment, right? And as this happens, collectively or aggregately, the level of demand for goods and services is going down in the entire economy. And that means that the amount of taxes that the government purports to be collecting from expenditure is going down because people are not buying goods. You'd rather have there is something called elasticity of demand. When you change the price of a commodity, the way in which the consumer responds to that change in price is referred to as price elasticity of demand. So when you increase taxes on expenditure and the demand for most of these products is elastic, that means people will opt out of these products. So the government is not going to even achieve its tax objective. That higher level of tax is not going to be raised because people are opting out. They are actually opting not to consume these goods and services. And when people are not consuming goods, and remember there are firms that have already invested because they had anticipated that people are going to consume, right? And when people are not consuming these goods, it means that the viability and the profitability of these investments is already stifled. That is why we are in a crisis. These firms probably took some loan from elsewhere to invest so as to start these projects. These loans are not being serviced. And this inability to pay debts is even creating a deeper crisis because these firms cannot even attract other loans elsewhere in the economy. So probably and most likely this is why we're in a crisis. I also want to add a political angle to it. We have come from a political transition in which there were campaigns. So when the new government took over, there was a lot of over-optimism about the state of the economy. And some people over-invested, over-committed themselves with the hope that this administration is going to be much better than the previous one. But the reality is now dawning on us that it's the other way around, which is plunging us into a further crisis.
Now, interesting, you're talking about taxes. Let's bring it home, break it down right here. It is one of the initiatives that President William Ruto's administration has been putting forth, and specifically during his last week's State of the Nation address at the National Assembly. He said, we have strategies that we are working on to make sure that we bring on board international partners to make sure we revive our economy and also invest. Some taxes has been an issue. We saw just a few months ago a section of investors complaining of the much taxes the government is demanding, which they're saying might force them to cut down on matters employment and also some of the services to withdraw. This is likely to affect us, especially from the manufacturing sector and also households. Now, how does taxes, specifically the more taxes President William Ruto's administration is introducing each and every day, is likely to affect manufacturers and investors and also households?
Good. Let me begin with the manufacturers. I am manufacturing a good because I want to sell it. And there is always a profit margin, which has already been pre-calculated based on the current economic dynamics. There is a profit margin that has already been projected, say the next 1 year, the next 5 years for every farm. So when the government is coming in and imposing a higher level of tax on this manufacturer, it means that the profit margins are going down. And as the profit margins are going down, it means therefore that the viability of the projects, or the viability of these products that are being manufactured is going down as a result of a higher level of what? Taxes. That is in the domestic market. Number two, these manufacturing firms are also exporting into other countries. And remember, they are competing against other firms that come from other jurisdictions. Firms that come from Uganda, firms that come from Rwanda, firms that come even from other far international markets. An increase in the level of taxes in the domestic market means that our products are becoming more expensive when they are going into other international markets. And as this happens, our level of imports will obviously go down. Say you are selling this new paper at 60 shillings, for instance, and you want to go and sell it in Uganda at 60 shillings, and the same in that territory is going at 40 shillings, and the content is the same. Are people going to consume it at a higher level of price?
Definitely.
Definitely no. We are lacking something which is called in economics comparative advantage. That is what the government is killing. We lack comparative advantage, meaning that the goods that are coming from our country are not cheaper. They are actually more expensive when compared to goods that come from other countries. And because of that, our level of exports are going down. And when the flow of trade between a country and the rest of the world is not favoring the country, this also contributes to a weakening shilling. Yes.
Interesting. Now, talk about the issue to do, you're bringing in the issue to do with the imports and exports.
Yes.
It's been one of the strategies that President William Ruto has been insisting. Yes. There are certain things we don't need to import. Yes. We need to empower our business persons in the country to make sure they're able to produce more. Yes. Now, if they cut on imports of certain things, then definitely they will be making sure that people here benefit. But does that mean they benefit to the extent that we buy from international market?
Good. Now, what I want to say here is talking is one thing and doing is another.
Practical.
Practical is another. Yes, we want to empower our local farms to manufacture.
Yes.
Have they been empowered? Right? Has their capacity been enhanced so that they can manufacture? If you are talking of empowering local farms and at the same time you are increasing taxes, you are making the operating environment unattractive, right? So actually I'm appealing to the government to move from talking to go to the action part of it so that this situation can be solved.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you empower the locals to manufacture when they don't have, number one, the capacity to manufacture? And if this capacity can be there, what is the government doing to ensure that there is an enabling environment? Can we have some policies that are favorable for businesses and investments instead of just talking, and the reality is that our action is the opposite of our talks. Yeah, so if we want to discourage imports, that is okay,
yes,
right? But what are the alternatives available? You know, this is what will bring in the black market economy.
Yes.
It will begin to thrive because you are making it expensive for goods to come from other countries and there are no alternatives available from within. That means you're creating an environment in which the black market or the black economy will begin to thrive. Yeah.
So taxes go down.
Taxes have to go down.
Interesting.
They have to go down. Yeah.
Now bring me back to the issue to do with, we now see the issue to do with the weakening shilling that is currently ongoing. And today, it's actually interesting that in November, it's 152 from 150. And just 2 months ago, it was 146. Now it's 152. Basically, in 2 months' time, it has grown by 6. Now, that means that our debt is also increasing because we are now at 146, now 143. This will also force the Treasury to review its debt. Yes. Now 718 billion, we are now at 861.3 billion, meaning the government has to find ways of paying this debt. Yes. Now if you have higher debts and you are forcing Kenyans, or rather finding ways to make sure that Kenyans pay more taxes, is it a better way of solving this issue to do with debt Can we pay our debt within time if we are being pressed to that extent?
I don't think it can work out like that, because I'm looking at it in several perspectives. Number one, a higher level of debt means that the government has to borrow again to finance some of this debt, because the government is not meeting its tax objectives. The KRA is not collecting the amount that it's supposed to be collecting. It's below its target. Now, if that is the case, the levels of debt will have to be paid by borrowing again. And every time the government, I don't know whether you are aware that people, the supply of money, the availability of credit has really gone down. And maybe many people don't understand why the availability of credit has gone down, because of this very high level of borrowing. Because before the government reaches out to external lenders, it must begin from the domestic market.
Yes.
And having exhausted the domestic market, that is when it goes outside to borrow money from the multilateral partners. And with the high levels of borrowing, you know, most local banks would prefer to give the government their money because of the risks of lending. It's low when you give the government that money, other than giving it to an individual. Yes. And that is why individuals cannot access money now. They cannot access money now because of the high levels of what? Borrowing by the government. So the impact on households, the same people that you are taxing, right? These people, some of them have invested, and some of them need credit to expand or to enhance the viability of investments, but they cannot access this. They cannot access this credit because of the lack of the availability of that credit. Or leave alone the lack of credit. When lending institutions give out credit, they look at the prevailing economic conditions and how it is likely to impact on someone's ability to repay that loan. One of the C's of credit is referred to as conditions. What are the prevailing macroeconomic conditions, and how are they likely to impact on your ability to repay the loan? And then comes the economic crisis that we are currently experiencing. And that means that most people, households, farms, cannot access credit. And if they do, the rates of interest has to be very punitive to compensate for the higher level of risks, given the crisis that we are in now.
Now, breaking it down to Mama Mboga out there who don't understand how the international markets and the weakening of shillings affects them. Now, bring it down. Someone has a debt of 20,000, and the Mama Mboga is making 10,000 a month. Now, what would be best for her to prioritize? Is it paying the debt or expanding her business?
The reality here is that there is this statement that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The words of Jesus Christ. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is what?
Weak.
Right? So, in the same way, you really want to pay. You're really willing to pay, and you are focused to pay this loan. But the ability to pay is not there. It's not there. You want to put food on your table and also pay a loan. If you are deciding between the two, most people would end up putting food on the table because the loan can wait. It doesn't matter whether the deadlines are coming. So a financial crisis, one of its effects is that it leads to a failure by households and farms to meet their contractual obligations. Including the loans that are maturing, most individuals opt not to do what? To repay, especially if the loan is not secured and the loan is not deducted at source. If you are the one to receive your payroll and go and repay this loan, you will not pay it. And the same will happen to the Mama Mboga. The Mama Mboga will want to revamp her business with the hope that the following day, because these people survive on a day at a time. A day at a time. That is the life of Mama Mboga. So the Mama Mboga will keep saying that tomorrow I will pay. So let me revamp my business today, or let me eat this money today. Tomorrow I will repay the what? The loan. So it's just a cycle of tomorrow. A cycle of tomorrow.
Yes. Now it is interesting that this is the state we are in the country right now. Even before going further, what would you make of President William Ruto's State of the Nation address last week? What did you expect he would address as a major issue?
Okay, I would have expected him to address the issue of the economic and financial crisis that we are talking about today. right?
Yes.
Because when you are going somewhere to address the nation, you have to find out what is the current pressing issue that needs to be addressed. Instead of coming out and saying that I have achieved that, I've achieved this, and I've achieved that, is this being felt on the ground?
Yes.
Right? Our economy has grown, for example. Is that growth being felt on the ground? Is it reflecting in terms of an increase in the living standards? Is it reflecting in the lifestyles of the citizens on the ground? And I'm very sure that the president is in touch with the reality on the ground. So I would have expected him to talk about issues to do with the cost of living. I would have expected them to talk about issues to do with restoring confidence in the economy. I would have expected them to talk about what his government is thinking about or going to do so as to make the business environment more attractive, to bring back the investors who have fled from the stock market.
Now, interesting. Now, just a day before or 2 days before his State of the Nation address, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, or rather, there was a gazette notice that projected increase in government services, and interesting one that stood out is replacement of your national ID. And Kenyans were talking about it on social media, and we could see memes being created from those specific gazette notice. Passport from 40-something pages, 50, all the way, increasing by significant amount. And national ID, I think when I was applying mine, I don't remember.
It was free.
Yeah, I don't remember paying even a cent.
Yes, it was free.
For that specific service. Renewing, I remember paying 100
shillings, yes.
Now we are talking about, if you lose it, it's 2,000.
2,000, yes.
If you
are applying 1,000.
1,000.
Yes.
And we could see numbers there, right there. Yes. You know, this year we have 903,000 KCSE candidates. So Kenyans were saying this is just a strategy of getting almost $1 billion from this specific number of students who are leaving high school. But then taking a look on the other issue, you know, these are government services and they're essential services. You can't work without an ID. Rather, you can't exist without an ID. You can't exist without a birth certificate, which now goes at 500 shillings. A few will see 500 shillings is little money. But others,
the right term,
yes. But many will see this.
The significant meaning.
500 shillings from, you know, just a common mwananchi. What does that mean? You increase these services. Will Kenyans find a way of dodging? Will Kenyans find a way of surviving? What does it mean? Or is it a strategy to make sure that those specific offices stay afloat?
Now, what I'm just trying to understand again is that our government is far much out of touch with the reality on the ground. Or every time the government sees someone walking on the ground there, it's seeing money.
Money walking.
Yeah, money walking. So count these people, there are 40 million. If each person pays 1,000, because everyone will lose an ID at some point, that is 40 million. Maybe that is the mentality in the mindset of the government and the government officials, right? So many people, I'm seeing the effect of this is that many people, number one, will not afford. You really want to, why should you be punished for becoming a citizen? Because an ID is one of the proofs of citizenry of a particular country or citizenship. So if you want to apply for that ID and someone is making the application to be very punitive, you will opt not to. That is number one. And number two, I'm seeing a situation in which the government is even forcing some people to move to other East African countries where there are no laws which are punitive like this. Because if in Kenya, I'm paying 1,000, for example, to get a national ID. What happens if you go to Uganda, for example? Would you find the same to be in practice? Obviously no, right? So I'm seeing a situation in which this will make people to not come up. And people will even, we've seen people changing their age. You have reached 18 and you say you are 12. Because you don't want to pay 1,000 or 2,000. Where is this one? Not even you don't want to pay, where is this amount going to come from? Seriously. Yeah. So if everything is increasing, including reviewing the IDs and with a very significant and realistic percentage, then you put a question mark. Where are these revenues going? A very big question, what? Question mark. Is this money going to be used for the intended purpose? Or is someone raising money for a political agenda come 2027? Now these are the questions that people need to ask and have them addressed. Because if the government is really interested in the welfare of the common mwananchi, then that ID should have even been reviewed down. You say that just apply free of charge. Just like the other time the Uhuru administration came and said that national exams are going to be free. You get that? I hear that that has also been restored. They are going to pay now. So this is why we are saying that there is a big question mark somewhere. When everything else is going up, and you are also expecting people to pay more taxes. I have paid more taxes, and if anything a higher level of taxes, why should I pay more for an ID? Why can't the government find a way of rewarding its citizens for paying these taxes by declaring that this particular service, we are going to offer it free of charge to the citizens? Those are the things that we want to see from the government.
It encourages.
It encourages. Yeah.
Now,
and it makes you to be very patriotic and loyal to your government. That at least the government recognizes that I pay taxes, and so I'm getting this free of charge. The other time they even announced that they're going to charge people for going to Huduma centers. So the new Huduma center, the service is free. But you pay, like I go to replace my ID, I pay the price of that ID, but the service there is free. But there is a proposal already to have those services paid for. So you pay for the ID and you also pay for the service at the Huduma center.
Yes, it's becoming more of a private.
It's becoming, the government is becoming, no wonder one of the government officials said that they are shareholders. You know, it is only a company that has shareholders. So the government is becoming a private entity. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, this is also an issue that the issue to do with cost of living. We saw earlier on a section of Kenya Kwanza government officials saying that, yes, we understand the cost of living is going up, but you have to give us more time. One thing that I've heard a few guys saying is, you made a promise. Let's see you fulfilling a few.
Before you promise.
Yes, before you promise.
Yes.
And it's coming out so outright. Yes. Let's talk about cutting the government expenditures.
Yes.
And specifically President William Ruto, his own office, his own travel expenditures, he reduced by 500 million Kenyan shillings. And right now we don't see our cabinet secretaries flying out of the country here and there. But then yesterday was a holiday to plant trees across the country. But one thing that did stand out specifically was how the allocation, or rather the directive to have all the 23 CS in different counties, and a number of them, including the roads CS, roads and transport, leaving Homa Bay, going to a different county. One leaving Migori, going to the Trans Nzoia County. These are counties that are far. For you to leave Homa Bay to the coastal part, you have to come back to Nairobi, then go. And definitely that is not by car. So I'm imagining, or rather, yes, I'm asking myself, all the 23 of them were either flying and 2-3 driving. And we saw the Linda Ugatuzi organization coming out to say that this is unnecessary spending.
Correct.
So they're telling us to tighten our belts, every day tighten even harder. But we are not seeing that amongst themselves. Is it sending signals that they are living, or rather they are spending at our expense?
Correct.
Should the tightening of belt also apply to the offices?
Yes, and they are not tightening their belts anymore. What I would have expected the government to do is to involve the local leaders. Instead of someone going to Homa Bay, taking a chopper to Makueni, going to Malindi and wherever, there is a leader at that side of the country.
Yes.
There is a leader in Malindi. Those local leaders, they should have been involved. And the moment you work closely with them, from the word go, you don't even have to go there physically, because your presence there simply means that there is something you are covering up to show that things are happening, but in reality they are not happening. Now let us look at how there is lack of commitment from the side of the government. How many trees do they want to plant annually?
15 billion you divide basically by 10.
Correct. Around 1.5 billion, right?
Yes.
How many trees were planted yesterday? You get that?
150 roughly million.
150 million.
Yes.
And we are talking about 1.5 what?
Billion.
This was so insignificant. right? If you want to win 100 meters, the way you start defines how you will end. The first step like this, is it a false start? Is it a good start? Is it a super start? You get that? So I would give the government a false what? Start. That is number one. Because if you are raising 1.5 billion, you should have started by a significantly higher what? Higher amount. In order to ensure that these trees are what? That objective or that goal is achieved. That is number one. Now, in terms of expenditure, we are milking this. That is the message the government is trying to pass around. We are milking these people, so let us enjoy the what? The milk. Otherwise, I would have expected them that involve the leader in Homa Bay. There is a senator there. There is an MP there. There is an MCA there. Involve these people. They don't have to travel from one place to another. And let these people involved. They want to inch in those respective dockets and plant trees and let them do the coordination at that level. In that case, the expenditure was absolutely unnecessary. Yeah.
Now bring us back to, we are talking about matters economy right here, and is Kenya likely to face an economic crisis in a few months to come, considering that our shilling is weakening compared to national or to other superior currencies across the world? Now we talk about the issue to do with oil prices, and fuel prices is actually the driver of our economy, fuel in itself.
Correct.
And we've seen this going up each and every day. Now, how best can we address this issue? Because a section of Azimio leaders are saying internationally the fuel prices are going down. But in our country, fuel prices continue
to go up. Yes.
Now, talking about economy, how is this fuel prices likely to affect our economy and also operation, starting from that border guy who now is forced to spend 217 shillings to buy a liter, which can only carry, or rather can only serve a single customer or two clients?
Now, I want to begin by saying that sometimes back, when there was a free, everyone was free to sell their fuel the way they want, right? We used to have the main oil marketing firms and these other independent dealers. And the oil marketing firms would exploit the consumers. In terms of, they formed a cartel, which resulted in very high prices to ensure that the market, you know, a cartel operates like a monopoly.
Yes.
Wherever you go, the price is the same, and the person benefiting is the farm and not the consumer.
Yes.
Now, when the government started to regulate the prices, the main objective of doing this was to protect the interests of the consumer.
Yeah.
To protect the interests of the consumer. Yes, sell your product the way you want, but let it not exceed this price.
Yes.
So come up with what is referred to as a price ceiling, a maximum acceptable price of a commodity.
Yes.
That was the interest of that was the intention. It was the spirit when the review started. But of late, especially in the current administration,
yes,
is this the spirit? Are we working in the interest of the local market? Are we working in the interest of the local consumers, the local transportation industry? And given that you rightfully put, fuel is an input in everything. You are producing, you are in the transport industry, your price is highly dependent on the fuel price.
Yes.
Even our electricity that we purchase, there is always something called fuel adjustment as a levy when you look at the electricity bill.
Yeah.
So the higher the fuel price, the higher even the electricity what? Bills. And you know, every other farm is dependent on fuel and electricity. And that is why we are chasing away farms to go to other countries. Because they find the operating environment in Kenya being unattractive, actually being very scary. So that is the effect on the farms. On the common mwananchi, how many people will continue to use electricity, for example? People will begin thinking of other means of survival.
Yes.
How many people will afford even to put kerosene? In fact, I say that the current government does not care for the Wanjiku that it purports to care for. Because in the previous fuel adjustments, in the previous administrations, they would not touch kerosene most of the times. They would only touch diesel and what? And petrol. Kerosene for a long part would not be touched. You know, this is where the Wanjiku comes in. The Wanjiku does not use gas. The Wanjiku does not, if there is even a Wanjiku that does not travel anywhere. And so the high cost of travel will not bother this Wanjiku. But this Wanjiku uses kerosene. And if you increase the price of kerosene every other time, it means you don't care.
Yes, now talking about subsidy, yes. Right there, still on matters fuel. How does subsidy now come in to reduce that? And does it help our economy, subsidy in itself, or it only widens the burden?
When you look at the cost and benefit analysis of subsidies, I would say the benefits outweigh the costs. Yeah. In terms of the burden on the side of the government, because the subsidy is actually an extra cost on the side of the government to ensure that the cost of living comes down, to ensure that the cost of fuel comes down, to ensure that the goods become more affordable. Remember, I talked about elasticity of demand earlier on. When you reduce the prices of commodities, consumers will respond by consuming more. And as these people consume more, even you as a government, you are getting a higher level of taxes. Yes, the tax per person or per transaction is low. You know, look at it in terms of quantity also. The numbers will come in. The amount you get per person is low, yes. But you are going to attract the masses so that at the end of the day, you get a higher level of taxes that you would have gotten as compared to making it to be higher and people are staying what? Are staying away. That is number one. Number two, when you bring in these subsidies and farms are experiencing an increase in the level of consumption and demand for their products, they will begin investing. And as they begin to invest, it means employment will be created. You know, one thing that we have not mentioned today is unemployment rates as a result of an economic crisis. Which farm will employ during an economic crisis? Even the existing jobs are already threatened. We've seen even in the media, some farms telling their employees to prepare for job reductions and restructuring. You know, restructuring is something that I heard the word restructuring for the first time during the Moi administration, which is more than 20 years back. That means the current government is taking us 20 years back. You get that? Because when you are working somewhere and your job is not secure, you get that? You cannot even plan in the long term because you don't know what will happen to you in the next 6 months. Yeah. So that is why we are saying that the government should come in to bring back those subsidies. Because the benefits actually outweigh the what? The costs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we are talking about some of these moves, economic moves, or rather plans the government has put in place to ensure that our country stays afloat. But we are also witnessing some economic crisis that we are currently in. Now, talk to me about this specific move that at first attracted many. It was actually, remember, it was launched in December. It was a big move, and the people saw it as an opportunity for a few guys to, especially the government was saying this is for those who are down there to make sure that they can start a business and run something, the Hustler Fund. Correct. It went silent, and on Saturday a single daily highlighted it, the Hustler Fund question. Yes. And it is quite interesting that currently a few guys can access a few, or maybe none. We were having that conversation earlier on yesterday with an individual, and they said they cannot access Hustler Fund despite having paid. Yes. Now, was it a plan, a long-term plan for a few, or was it a short-term plan, or was it not even a plan at all, financing it by itself?
Okay, I think I remember I mentioned this earlier. Elsewhere, the day the fund was launched, and I predicted that the sustainability of the fund, number one, depends on the behavior of the people borrowing. That is number one. The will to repay. Yes. Right? So chances are that you have repaid and you want to get that money. But the money is not there because several other people have not done what? Have not paid. They have opted to willingly not pay. Because if anything, the argument here is that, remember the fund was a campaign. It started during the campaigns. Yes. That when you elect me, I'm going to do this. So this is one of the positives that the current administration did, that we told people this, so let us implement it. So maybe I see a situation in which the fund was launched in a hurry and did not anticipate a situation in which what happens, they did do a what-if analysis. Yes. What happens if people don't repay? What do we do? right? What we do as a fund to ensure that these people do what? Pay. Without intimidating like the other digital lenders intimidate, or without shaming like the digital lenders do what? Shame. So there is a situation, I'm seeing a situation in which the liquidity, the current liquidity problem is also affecting the hustler what? The hustler fund. Because this money is being held by a significant people. And we cannot even say that they will. Maybe someone is really willing to pay. I have taken 500, for example, to pay the hustlers fund. And you send me 1,000, brother.
Yes.
Because I am in need, I want to buy breakfast and lunch and a few commitments. Will I pay the hustlers fund?
Definitely no. You will focus with the
correct. So those are some of the challenges here. The will to pay may not be there, that is number one. And number two, there are this category of people who really want to pay, but the reality of the ground cannot allow them to pay. They cannot pay because of these other pressing issues, because of the current crisis that we are in.
Yes. Now, just in a nutshell, help us understand some of the options Kenyans have right now. What can they run for in terms of business types, investments? Do they have any other option apart from these other options that seem to be failing? The open business.
Now, what I can say is that Kenyans can still do any other business. Actually, in business there is a concept of risk and return. When the risk is so high, we are not saying that you get out. As an investor, you are the one investing. What is your perception about that risk? If you're someone who is a risk taker, you will still go and demand very high returns. We are told, you've heard of the people called the COVID millionaires?
Millionaires, definitely.
There are people who made a kill genuinely during the time of COVID, because when other people were opting out, when other people were seeing risks, they saw an opportunity and they invested. And because there were very few, their investments brought back very quick returns. So what I would want to advise someone who is venturing into business, the risks are there. The risks are continuing to increase every other time. And so you have to factor that in the returns that you expect to get from these investments. Yeah, you have to factor that in returns.
Interesting. Now, because of time, help us understand specifically some of the options that President William Ruto's administration have with regards to helping ensure that in as much as the Kenyan shillings is weakening, how can we as a country stay economically afloat, making sure that our economy grows and also employment opportunities are there and our economy thrives, like we saw during former president, the late Mwai Kibaki?
We want to see, number one, the president bringing confidence about the state of the economy. Because one of the factors, one of the drivers of very weakening shilling is lack of confidence about the Kenyan economy. So the biggest burden that the government has right now is to ensure that it brings back this confidence. And one of the ways of bringing back this confidence, we have talked, the government has talked, the president has talked. We want to see action. If you say that you are going to do this, right, do it. And before you say another thing, before you promise another thing, ensure that you have already delivered on what you have said in the previous engagements. That is number one. Number two, we don't expect any government agency or the president himself to be telling us every other time that the cost of living has gone down. Because this is not the Wanjiku on the ground.
Yes.
Let the Wanjiku be the one experiencing the effects of a reduction in the cost of what? Of living. What I'm seeing here is a situation in which the government knows what is supposed to be done, but opting not to do it. So I expect the government to take action on whatever it has been promising over the last. If it has not been delivered, when you live in denial, you are in a problem and you live in denial. This problem continues to generate from one level to another. It continues to escalate. We are also told that if you are lost and you want to find your way, you have to begin by accepting that you are lost. And after you've accepted that you are lost, how do I find my way? So the government needs to accept, number one, that the economy is not working. We are in a crisis and face it head on and come up with policies that will ensure that the business environment is attractive. Reduce taxes. and ensure that you come up with policies that will increase the availability of credit in the economy, because people are not accessing credit. And when people are not accessing credit, it means that they cannot invest. Yeah. So those are the few things that I expect the government to do.
Reducing taxes specifically.
Yeah, reduce taxes.
Finding ways to fund their specific projects. But one thing that we will take home, the cost of living will only be best described by the Wanjikus.
Correct.
They are the ones to feel it has reduced.
Correct, not the government.
Yes,
yeah.
Interesting.
In those big offices, you cannot feel a reduction in the cost of living. Yeah.
Interesting. Now that has been Killian Amolo. Many thanks for coming through, helping us understand where we are as a nation in terms of our economy. And it is interesting that right now, the budget deficit has risen by 143.5 billion. And one move that the government will make is to borrow more to make sure that we are able to reduce and cut down on the specific amount of debt that we have. And we also have to repay our debt in as much as we want to revive our economy. And it seems now that we might be in this crisis for quite some time. And we did hear President William Ruto earlier on say that he is working to make sure that some of the strategies the Kenya Kwanza government has put in place is to revive our economy. And yesterday's one of the dailies highlighted that it took him specifically 422 days to say that the Kenya Kwanza government does not really have a specific plan to get us out of this crisis, like it took a single day for the former president, the late Mwai Kibaki, to say the same words. And it's quite interesting, such a comparison that we are seeing. But we do hope all will be well, but it's time as an investor to spot an opportunity than value the risk to be higher than the opportunity. Just be conscious, or rather cautious, of how you invest, and in what you invest. It might pay back in good time and amount. Now that marks the end of today's EBN Morning Live. Many thanks for coming through once again. My name is Sami Adika. Do have a fruitful day. Let's meet tomorrow at exactly 7 a.m.
Thank you.